Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on all the places: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, at Hawk Blogger. And I guarantee you, if you go to any of those places, you are going to find somebody complaining about what I'm doing or how I'm doing it, because that's just the way things are on social media nowadays. You certainly can't please everybody. It almost seems like you can't please anybody. But the good thing is I do this because I like doing it. And I did this when nobody was listening. I am going to be happy to continue to do it independently of all the odd different agendas that are out there. So I decided to bring back SnowCam, and it's probably not going to snow during the show, but we got some snow last night, and guess what? No school, no school. It doesn't take much in Seattle, or in this case, Bellevue, for them to cancel classes. And I don't know about you, any of you parents out there, working parents who, you wake up in the middle of the night, maybe you check the school district website and you see no news. And so you think, oh, we're good. And you sleep all the way through into your alarm going off, which is a rarity for me, I'll say, but it happened this morning. And the first thing you do is you check to make sure there's still school before you wake your kid up, because the rookiest move is to actually wake your kid up, go through the whole morning routine, and then find out that school's canceled. So you check first thing, and it's canceled. So sometime between 3 in the morning and 6 in the morning, they made the decision to cancel school. Well, it's a half day on Wednesdays, at least in this part of the country. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. My guess is they'll at least be 2 hours delayed tomorrow. Maybe they'll cancel it again. This region does not handle snow well. It just does not. Part of it's the people not accustomed to it, not knowing what to do. Part of it's the city. They don't have the equipment to really be prepared for it. And part of it is the topology. So for people that are on the East Coast that always make fun of the Northwest for not having school after a little bit of snow, it's very different driving on the hills out here in the Northwest when there's snow and ice than it is in the East Coast on those rolling hills that you've got out there. So in any event, I wish everybody the best who is making their way through, and wanted to spend today on a topic that I've been kind of playing around with for the last few days, and we're going to have some fun with it today. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm sure you've all heard the different mock drafts that are out there and the different possible players that people have projected to the Seahawks. And I'll talk about some of those, but I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. That seems pretty boring. I will tell you that there's some times where I hear someone's mocked a player to the Seahawks, and I'm like, really? Like, no. Basically, my reaction to that is, you are not paying attention to this team. You don't care about this team. And so you're just going through and looking at the roster and deciding, if you're doing that even, and saying, oh, you need this position. Well, what I decided to do today is let's actually play along. Let's play along with some of who people have projected to go to the Seahawks. And let's talk about what that would look like. Let's entertain it, even though most of the time I just dismiss it out of hand. I thought it might be fun to go through and kind of play around with them, see what it would look like. So just a little while ago, I think this was Ari that put this together, but I'm not sure. But someone over at Seahawks put together a roundup of all these different mock drafts. And I'm not going to go through each one. There's plenty of other places that have been doing that, but I'm going to highlight a few. And so once we do that, I'm probably going to end up, I'll almost definitely do some mock drafts today live. And we'll kind of talk through, okay, well, how would that set up the draft if you went this position first? What would it mean in other aspects of the roster, things like that. And the first one that I kind of wanted to start with is, to me, probably I mean, it came in two different places. Joseph Acosta predicted this, but then also Matt Miller. And let me pull up Matt. I don't think I even have Matt Miller's draft in this list, but let me pull up Matt Miller's mock draft. And Matt Miller, for my money, had the most upsetting, I guess. I don't know the right word, or just like off tone, not quite tone deaf, but off tone mock draft for the Seahawks. And the first thing that he did was he drafted Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama. Now, Jahad Campbell is an off-ball linebacker. He can play on the edge. He can rush the passer, so he's got a little bit of that to him, but he's primarily intended to be an off-ball linebacker. Now, why do I think that this is a strange first-round pick for the Seahawks? Well, there's at least a few reasons why I think that's strange. One, I expect, the Seahawks expect, Ernest Jones expects, his teammates expect that Ernest Jones is going to be signed. And if Ernest Jones is signed, then you've got like a 25 and a 24-year-old pair of inside linebackers that are probably going to be your inside linebackers for the foreseeable future. So why would you spend a first-round pick on a position that is already young and good? Does not make any sense. The other reason I think it's odd is even if they don't sign Ernest Jones, do you really go inside linebacker in the first round? Positional value-wise, is that the best way to go? Keep in mind, you got Tyrese Knight in the 4th round last year. Folks are saying there might be some distortion on the mic. Let me see if I can change mic level a bit, see if that helps. But let me know if that's not any better. I can see what I can do to modify things. And so, yeah, I have some questions about positional value and about why you do it there on the first pick of the draft. But let's play along. What would have to be true in order for them to maybe make this pick? First, I think they would have to decide that they don't want to spend the money on Ernest Jones. And I'll admit, I have marked that down, not quite in pen, but it's in heavy, it's in, let's at least say it's a erasable ink, like I think that the idea that John Schneider is going to have traded a 4th round pick for Ernest Jones, that he's going to excel with the Seahawks, that his teammates are going to love him, that his coaches are going to love him, that he's going to love being here, that he's young, and that they're going to say, nope, we're not going to sign him. None of that makes sense to me. So I've just assumed, I think it's a fait accompli that he's going to be a Seahawk. But there is at least for the purposes of this show, let's talk about it. Let's say that Ernest Jones, his projected salary is somewhere between 8 and maybe up to 12 million. I don't think it goes beyond that. If you go to Over the Cap and I look up Ernest Jones, let's see what they ended up with as a contract projection for him. His valuation is 9.2 million. That's their valuation for Ernest Jones, which I think is right in that range. I think is reasonable. But imagine that if he were to get a $9.2 million deal, that's a chunk of change. What could you do if you did not sign Ernest Jones? Well, now you're talking about leaving a very big hole in the middle of your defense, and a position that you signed 2 players for last year, both of whom didn't work out. So you are putting a big risk on a position that matters a lot in this defense, And you are kind of rolling the dice that a rookie or maybe another veteran could come in and help. But if you're spending a first round pick on Jihad Campbell, it means you have not signed a Nick Bolton. It means you have not signed Dre Greenlaw or one of the other veteran inside linebackers. You're saying we're going to get a really, like, a very good inside linebacker, and we're going to use our first round pick to make sure that we do that. So, what do you say we do a little mock draft with this in mind? You guys good with that? We'll do the PFF one is a little bit annoying, but I'm gonna do that one to start with. We'll see after one pass through if that makes sense to continue using. And we'll do a 4-round mock, okay? And we're gonna kind of mix between public and PFF board. And let's make sure Jihad Campbell's available. He is. I'm not surprised. So I will share my screen so you guys can see what I'm seeing. And let's go ahead and share this. And let me put it on stage so you guys can see along with me. All right. So hopefully you can see that. I'll zoom in just a little bit and you can go along with me. All right. So in this situation, the Seahawks will be passing on Kelvin Banks. They'll be passing on Mykel Williams. They'll be passing on Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Armand Membu, a bunch of other guys. And they're going to scroll, Gray Zabel, scroll, and we're going to find Jihad Campbell down here. And for people that don't know Jihad Campbell, this is not anything against Jihad Campbell. He is most likely the best off-ball linebacker in this class. 6'3", 244, based here. He's only going to be 21 this year. So young guy, can develop. Rangy guy. He's been really good in filling against the run. He's the cream of the crop for the inside linebacker crew. So let's go ahead and see what happens for the draft when you say, let's pick Jihad Campbell as your first pick. Well, let's assume again, you've not signed Ernest Jones. So what else can we assume? Let's talk about this for a second. If you have not signed Ernest Jones, where's that $9 million a year gone to? Well, it could have gone to defensive tackle. We've talked about some of the interesting defensive tackle options that are in this free agency class. You could be talking about a Bobby Brown. You could be talking about who are the guys that I had? Let me pull them up. There's a few different players I have on my free agent big board. You could be talking about Poona Ford, bringing him back. Maybe you do something big, like maybe you get Talanoa Hufanga. Maybe you get him at safety to replace Rayshawn Jenkins. And now you've got the best safety trio you've had in a long time. Maybe you've gotten one of the more expensive guards that John Schneider's typically been uncomfortable getting. And so maybe you get a Tevin Jenkins. Maybe you get a James Daniels, or maybe you get a Mekhi Becton. Maybe you go all the way up to that level. So you have to assume that this isn't just about not having Ernest Jones. It's about using that money elsewhere. Okay. So let's go back to our mock draft, and let's see, with that in mind, who would be kind of the next person that we'd look at to draft for that situation. Well, I'm going to assume in this case that they've moved that money from Ernest Jones to Talanoa Hufanga. All right, an all-pro safety coming off an injury, maybe a 1-year deal, and also a middle-of-the-field defender, an impact player that they feel like maybe is better then Ernest Jones. This is all hypothetical. So what that does is it leaves open the possibility of still drafting your guard in the second round. So Tyler Booker's a guy that a lot of people, Daniel Jeremiah just released his top 50. I think he has Tyler Booker at around 12 on his list of top players, but he's available here, and I'm not going to play around. Donovan Jackson's available as well. Let's go ahead and I think Tyler Booker feels like unrealistic. Donovan Jackson might, I mean, he's been kind of slipping. I think this guy, he might end up being better than Tyler Booker for my money. He's close to number one on my board for guards. So we're going to take Donovan Jackson here in the second round. Then we're going to go all the way down to the third round. And now we're going to, I think tight end starts to be a very logical discussion. And you've got Elijah Arroyo and Mason Taylor as two really good names. Wide receiver wise, you've got Jalen Royals, Tez Johnson. Cornerback, you got Azariah Thomas, who is a long, lanky guy. I don't think he's going to last this long. You do have Dayon Walker, which I think in the third round becomes a name you can at least talk about. You could start looking at quarterback. You could start looking at center if you want. There's some interesting names in this list. And they've got Jackson Dart still available. I'm not going to do that. Savion Jones, who had a great Senior Bowl, the game itself. For me, I go tight end here. And Elijah Arroyo is, in a lot of ways, the guy with the higher upside from a pass catcher perspective. But I just think Mason Taylor is an ideal fit for what the Seahawks are trying to do from a blocking perspective. He's bigger. I love his NFL bloodlines. If I go back and I look at Arroyo's run blocking, he's a little bit higher, at least in the run blocking grade, for whatever that's worth. But I like Mason Taylor. I like his body type for this offense and what he can do. So let's go ahead and take Mason Taylor. So now you've got Mason Taylor. And in the fourth round, well, Aeneas Peoples is staring you right in the face. This is a very active interior defensive lineman. You could go quarterback. I don't think Jackson Dart's going to be here, so I'm not going to pick him. You could go, let's see. Shamar Turner is another name. Kyle McCord. I think that makes sense. I think we might pull the trigger on Kyle McCord. And CJ West is another pretty good name on the interior. Upton Stout's a quality corner. You got Denzel Burke, who I like. Jonah Monheim, who I think is a pretty interesting center. But when I look at this, I think if Kyle McCord's there in the fourth round, I think you got to pull the trigger. I think he's got some interesting upside. Kyle Williams is a pretty good pick as a receiver as well. But let's get that quarterback. And here we go. So if we were to follow along with at least what Matt Miller started us with, which was an inside linebacker, PFF doesn't like this grade, this draft. Jihad Campbell, Donovan Jackson, Mason Taylor, Kyle McCord. I think that would be a pretty appealing draft. I don't hate this draft at all. But it does lack a little bit of the real upside. Jihad Campbell, I think, is a good player. I'm not sure you're going to be a better team having drafted that inside linebacker and having counted on him as opposed to counting on someone like Ernest Jones. So I don't know. Let me know in chat. What do you guys think? Is anyone tempted by the idea of not signing Ernest Jones, saving $9 million per year, and spending that money elsewhere, and then drafting Jihad Campbell with your first pick? Is that tempting to anybody? Anybody feel like, well, maybe I wouldn't have thought about it before, but I'll think about it now? While you guys are thinking about that and adding it in chat, let me go through some super chats. Junior Langston's been a member for 2 months. He says, congrats on all the success. Go Hawks. That's very nice of you, Junior. Thanks for that. And thanks for being a member for a couple months. Jared's been a member for 5 months. One of the vets. He says, didn't know what else to say. So, go Hawks. Well, I think it's well said, Jared. Well done. Vince Ochoa, he's been a member for 5 months. Awesome guest lately, Brian. Keep up the great pods. Thanks, man. It's fun. Like, I'll admit it's kind of easier when you space out the guests, but it's also just fun to double up and have good conversation for the whole time. So, off season, you get some different people available, and I'm really looking forward to talking to Dane Brugler a lot. And thank you to Old School Seahawk, who upgraded his membership in order over at Patreon in order to make that possible. So lots of ways that you guys can help the show improve, and that is certainly one of them. Here goes Bryce. Bryce Coots off on his old tricks. Has gifted 10 Hawk Blogger memberships, hundreds of memberships that he has now gifted. Really, really appreciate it, Bryce. And he also follows up with a super chat, which I really appreciate as well. So thank you, Bryce, for doing that. Adam the Eyelidson has been a member for a month. He says, signing Ernest Jones is a must. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Adam, I think that's exactly how the Seahawks see it. And I think that's how the team sees it. That's why I think that this scenario we just went through, while it's kind of interesting, I just don't see it as being at all realistic. Unless somehow the agent gets really greedy, I just think the Seahawks are going to sign him. John Schneider does not like trading away draft picks and then not signing the guy. Like, that's just not who he is. There's not a lot of examples of that. So I think that, especially for a guy that really worked out well. We've got a new member here in Keith Apperson. Welcome. I don't know if it's an upgraded membership or you're actually a new member. It doesn't tell me that. So either way, thank you and welcome. Nunya, 393 is gifted 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. I think Nunya was trying to figure this out before, if I remember correctly. So I'm really happy you figured it out. And thank you for gifting 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. And Bryce comes right back and says, well, I'm going to do that too. So Bryce gives another 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. Appreciate all of those super chats. Amazing, folks. Great, great, great stuff. Let's talk about, I'm going to look through some of the replies here to this scenario. Vince Ochoa says, yes, I'd switch the linebacker for an edge. Black SpongeBob says, no, I'm not interested. Jason says, I think we need to come away with a D lineman somewhere in the first 3 rounds. Vince says, no, feels like we can get a linebacker later in the draft. Jackson says, no way. Stable linebacker play is too important for Mike McDonald's defense. Dogzilla says no. Jason Tudor says no. So yeah, I think you guys are all in the same boat as I am, which is, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. It's not only strange, it's just wrong. I don't see it happening. I think Matt Miller, by the way, if you don't know this about Matt Miller, he is a diehard 49ers fan. And so it's no accident, I don't think, that his 49er draft that he, in this two rounds, that he gives them Josh Simmons at 11, and then he gives them Gray Zabel in the second round, the most popular player right now. But somehow he slips to the 49ers in the second round. And he gives the Seahawks 2 really odd picks. His second pick in the for the Seahawks, if you're curious, at number 50, was Alfred Collins, who is basically just a run-stuffing defensive tackle. And while the Seahawks need one of those, I don't think you take a run-stuffing defensive tackle without a lot of pass rush upside at number 50. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. So not a huge fan of Mr. Miller's mock draft, but that's Jihad Campbell. Let's talk about a different one. Let's go a different direction. This one's going to be tough for me to stomach. It's going to be tough for me to stomach, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to go quarterback in the first round, okay? We're going to re-rack this thing. We're going to go quarterback in the first round. We will use a different draft sim to do this. So we will use the NFL mock draft database. And we will also go 4 rounds there. And in this case, Jason McIntyre of Fox Sports has picked Jalen Milroe for the Seahawks in the first round. Jalen Milroe. I don't know if you saw my timeline last night. I retweeted something from Sam Monson, who I'll have to have on the show here soon, but he had a hilarious tweet of a picture of a person putting their hand up on a massive football, saying it's the first picture of Jalen Milroe holding an NFL football. His little tiny hands. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it because that's the whole point of this show is we're going to do things that we think are strange, weird, that we wouldn't otherwise do. We're just going to try them on because you know what? It's not going to hurt us to just try. So let's, it hurts a little bit. I'll admit it does hurt a little bit, throw up a little bit in my mouth, but we're going to do it. So here we go. You're going to watch it happen. You're going to see it and you're going to be like, it's funny, like Will or someone's going to clip this and it's going to get put up there and people are going to be like, see, Brian thinks they should draft Milroe in the first round. And everyone's going to assume, like, you will not believe how many people just know about this show from Will's shorts that he puts on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And they think basically they think that I just want to trade DK Metcalf, all the time, and now they're going to think that I want to draft Jalen Milroe in the first round. But it's okay. It's okay. It's a lot of entertainment. All right. So how far do we have to scroll to get to Jalen Milroe? That's the first part of this fun little exercise. Not that far. They have him up pretty high, which I think is crazy. Crazy. All right. But here we go. We are drafting Jalen Milroe with the 18th pick in the first round. And before we get to our next pick, let's just talk about this for a second. What are the implications here? If you draft any quarterback in the first round, he is your future starter. There's no other reason to take a quarterback in the first round unless you are saying this is the guy we are betting on to be our future starter. So what's the case there? Very possibly you either have not signed Geno Smith to an extension or you have let him go. So he's no longer your quarterback. Either of those are possible. And you'd be saying we are going to have a quarterback competition between Sam Howell and the rookie. Which, by the way, we know John Schneider's done before. He's signed a Matt Flynn free agent. He's drafted a Russell Wilson rookie. They had a quarterback competition also with Tavares Jackson. And may the best man win. And so it's not the craziest thing to project. I don't like it. I'm not promoting it, but it is what it is. So imagine that this is a guy that could be getting meaningful snaps as a rookie, and that you're basically signing him up to your franchise. So here we are at pick 50, having already taken Jalen Milroe. And I think if you're taking Jalen Milroe, you're probably feeling all the more obligated to support him with offensive linemen. And so in this particular draft, it's starting to get a little thin on interior offensive line. And I'll tell you a guy that's growing on me. We'll use this as a chance to also talk through some other players. I like Marcus Bowe. I like Marcus Bowe. He's played tackle a lot. He might be one of the most athletic linemen in this class. I think I think his chances of becoming a Seahawk increased dramatically when Clint Kubiak and John Benton became coaches for Seattle. He's a mover. I think he's at his best in those situations. I think he can play guard potentially, but I really think he's best fit is at center. So I'm going to go ahead and draft Marcus Bowe as a guy that I think fits really well into a zone blocking scheme. And I think is a guy that could end up being one of the better offensive linemen in this class. There's something about him that's definitely grown on me the more I've watched his film. He's just an interesting player. All right, so now we've got Jalen Milroe and Marcus Bowe. They all rhyme, so we're going to do an all rhyming draft class. And where do you go next? Well, now Alfred Collins as a defensive run stuffer makes some sense in the third round. That's not the craziest thing, but I think you give Jalen Milroe some more firepower. And here's something I'm gonna do that we're gonna go off the trail a little bit here. So Mason Taylor is the guy I could easily draft again. I'd feel very good about that. Like that's probably the right pick. You could also really make a case for Carson Schwessinger to go defense and give some depth in linebacker. He's, I think, an ideal third linebacker to add to kind of develop. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add Savion Williams because if you tell me that we're going to take Jalen Milroe, obviously a running quarterback, athletic, struggles to kind of play on-time football, not the most accurate guy intermediate. Give me Savion Williams, maybe the most interesting athlete in this whole class, who's a contested catcher as it begins with, can go get the deep ball, 6'5", 225. You put him in the backfield sometimes with Jalen Milroe. I think you're talking about a very interesting weapon that becomes a really good fit with the type of offense you'd want to run with Jalen Milroe. So I'm going to take Savion Williams there. 88% contested catch rate through his college year this year, the tops in FBS. So I think that's a fun pairing. If you're going to go Milroe, then go all the way. Build the offense around him. Physical running athletes is what you're going to want. Okay. Now we get to the fourth round, and honestly, there's some pretty good players left here. There's some really interesting players still left here in the fourth round. You got Terrace Ferguson. You still have CJ West as an interior guy. Jeffrey Bass is available. That seems crazy in the fourth round. I love him. Ozzie Trapillo is almost an ideal swing tackle prospect. Anthony Belton is a really good interior offensive line prospect at guard. You haven't really certainly added a guard yet. I mean, Kobe Bryant, you can make the dream come true of having the two Kobe Bryants on the same team. Jared Wilson, a good center prospect, although you just got one, so you don't need another one. Jalen Noel, wide receiver, another interesting player to add up there. I think in this scenario, you've gone offense, offense, offense. Generally, you want to go best player. I am really tempted, though, looking at this, I am tempted to go Jalen Noel. I mean, that's a pretty good pick right there. Aeneas Peoples is probably your best bang for your buck. Terrence Ferguson would make a lot of sense. Let's take a look at the tight end group. Who do we have left? Ferguson's probably the last good tight end. We're going to screw it. We're taking Terrence Ferguson. We're adding more to the offense. This is an offense class. And there you go. Jalen Milroe, Marcus Bowe, Savion Williams, Terrence Ferguson. How would you feel, folks? How does this make you feel? Anybody get excited about this? Anybody like interested in this concept of going like, I'll admit it. There's part of me that says that's kind of interesting. You know, like who knows? I really don't believe Jalen Milroe is a guy that's going to succeed as a passer anytime soon, maybe anytime ever. But if you go all in and build an offense around him, he certainly has the legs. So 12 for Life says, I blame Hawkballer's radicalization when it comes to running threat QBs. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I'm absolutely radicalized on running threat QBs, to the point where I was really excited to watch Jalen Milroe in that draft or in that Senior Bowl, but was very displeased with what I saw. Um, so someone said it's going to be hard to rhyme with Schlesinger. That is true. That is true. I'm glad we didn't end up sticking with the rhyming draft. Vince Ochoa says this one hurt. Jackson Knight says I just threw up in my mouth. Yeah, Jason Gordon, way too much offense, and I hate Milroe in the first. Raptor Rancher, barf. David Pankey says it's offensive. Jared says I don't hate the last three, but the first one killed me. Matthew McManus just says I feel like my drunk uncle just hacked the Seahawks draft room. Old school Seahawks says no. Yeah. So Vince says it feels like a fever dream. I got you guys. I mean, this is the time we're gonna explore your discomfort together. Okay, we're gonna explore your discomfort together. So this was not my projection. Gonna continue to clarify. This was Jason McIntyre of Fox Sports giving the Seahawks Jalen Milroe in the first round. And maybe people would feel differently if the name said Jackson Dart. Honestly, I might feel worse. Because at least the one thing I know about Jalen Milroe is he's got first round talent in his legs. He is, and don't talk to me about, a bunch of these other guys. He has got exceptional breakaway speed as a quarterback. He's certainly got talent to run with the football. He just, Jackson Dart, I don't think there's a clear first round part of his skill set. Maybe his makeup, like something intangible. But I'm not sure I see the clear first round skill set or characteristic with Mr. Dart. Should we keep going? You guys ready for the next oddity? Let's go. Let's talk about the next odd pick possibility. All right. Let's do a third mock draft simulator. We'll do a different one here. Let's do Pro Football Network's mock draft simulator. All right. We'll do 4 rounds again. We'll make it go fast. And let's do 2 more. We're going to do 2 more. This first one we're going to do is, well, we might do 3. Let's see how fast this goes. All right. I mean, there's more than 3 here to kind of walk through. Rob Rang has them taking Josh Simmons. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. Rob's smart. I respect Rob. I think he is one of the best at doing this. And the reason I think Josh Simmons is an odd pick, a strange pick, is because he's a pure tackle. You're not taking Josh Simmons to play guard. And so if you take Josh Simmons here, what you are saying is either you're moving on from Charles Cross, or you're moving on from Abe Lucas, or you're moving Abe Lucas to guard. I don't think Abe Lucas is a guard. I don't think so. Maybe they do. I don't think that's his best position. But let's do this, and let's take Mr. Josh Simmons to be a new tackle on your team. And what that does is you no longer have to potentially worry about Abe Lucas because you've got another option there. And maybe you've got an elite tackle combination, which maybe you already do, depending on whether Abe Lucas can stay healthy. But you've gone tackle, not tackle/guard. You've gone tackle in the first round. So what does that mean? Well, It almost certainly means that you're not signing Abe Lucas to an extension, that you're going to have him on the team for maybe one more year. I don't know how much sense that makes to me because your problem is finding quality offensive linemen. Abe Lucas is a quality offensive lineman, and I don't think the best way to build up your line is to trade out one quality lineman for another, even if it's a trade up. I don't know. This doesn't feel right to me right off the jump, but we're gonna explore it. We're gonna explore it. So you get, and by the way, this is what Rob Rang said in defense of Josh Simmons. It says, it's been the same old story in Seattle for a decade or more. A porous offensive line is keeping the Seahawks from taking flight. Simmons initially caught scouts' attention at San Diego State and played well for the Buckeyes prior to suffering a season-ending knee injury. If teams are satisfied with his recovery, he'll be a first-round selection this spring. He has the girth to play guard and athleticism for tackle, giving Seattle much-needed flexibility. So Rob does see him as a potential guard. Maybe. I don't think teams are drafting Josh Simmons to play guard, but maybe. I mean, Donovan Jackson certainly moved out from guard to tackle. Who knows? Maybe it's possible for that to go the other direction. So now you've got Josh Simmons. You get to pick 50. Interestingly, in this particular mock, again, we're using Pro Football Network, Jihad Campbell's available. Jalen Milroe's available. We could just stack every odd pick that we've done so far together. I think Xavier Restrepo being this high is too high. I don't think he's a top 50 player. I don't think Wyatt Millum is a top 50 player, although I think he's a better fit for this zone scheme than some other guys. You've already got a tackle. You're not going to take another one in Josh Connerly. Ariante Ursary is a guy I've compared to Jermaine Ifedi. I just think pass blocking wise, not a good fit. This does become an option for Jackson Dart. I mean, you could think about that here. I don't think that's crazy. Donovan Ezeraku is the Boston College edge player. He had a nice Senior Bowl. TJ Sanders is an interesting player. Darian Porter, the long, lanky corner, interesting name. Mason Taylor, like you kind of go on down this list. Omar Norman Lott, I like a lot. So interesting group here. I don't know. I think I probably go TJ Sanders here. I don't think that's the right weight for TJ Sanders. But that's probably where I'm feeling the most pull. Only other guy I could kind of think about is Mason Taylor. I mean, they've got Omar Norman Lott. Let's take Omar Norman Lott. I like him too much. Let's just do it. It doesn't matter. We're doing it. I like him a lot. So I think his weight is a little lower than that, but I think he's going to be a very disruptive player in the NFL. So now you've got Josh Simmons. You've gone on both sides of the line, which I like. Next pick here, and honestly, the guy staring at me is Azariah Thomas, the cornerback from Florida State. There's people that have him as a first-round pick. I think you run and deliver this if it's there. David Walker, the edge player from Central Arkansas, had a very big Senior Bowl. I think he led the team in pressures during the game. Alfred Collins, the run stuffer we talked about before, is there as well. You've got Elijah Arroyo. That's probably the better pick here. I think you really got to... Oh, Gray Zabel's still available? That's ridiculous. Guys, I'd love to do it, but I can't in good faith. He was not going to be available here in the third round, so can't do it. Let's go ahead and take Arroyo. Let's take a tight end, a move tight end who can help. I think offense, you really got to lean in on the offense. And then we get to pick in the fourth round, and Jordan Birch is sitting there. I think that's pretty much... Well, Jack Besh is there as well. And Jeffrey Bassa. And Jabbar Muhammad. There's some good picks available here. Kyle McCord's there. Miles Frazier, who I love at guard. Ooh, Aeneas Peoples, Ozzie Trapillo. Like, there's a lot of good names left here. I don't know if they have really the right rankings for these guys, but I love the guys that are available. what do we have? We've got Josh Simmons, Omar Norman Lott, and Arroyo. I think you, this is a tough one, folks. As far as need goes and positional priority, man, that is really tough. I wish I knew what Jordan Birch is going to test, how he's going to test at the combine. That would make this a lot easier. But Besh is a guy I just love. If you add Besh and Arroyo to that offense, that's a really fun duo. Let's just do it. Oh, you haven't drafted Jack Besh yet. Here is that draft. 3 players for the offense, 1 on defense. Josh Simmons, Omar Norman Lott, Elijah Arroyo, and Jack Besh. How do you guys feel about this class? How do you guys feel about this? This one for me is like that's not a bad draft if you get those as your first 4. That's certainly an appealing group of guys. I see someone says Norman Lott is a problem. Do you mean that in a positive way or a negative way? Because I certainly see him as a positive a problem for other teams. But yeah, I think that this is pretty good. I think Simmons at tackle, you don't have your guard unless he can play guard. So maybe you should have doubled up there. If L1887 says positive problem. Yeah, so it is what it is. We're going to use this draft sim again. I kind of liked it the most of the 3. And we're going to go through with another odd, strange pick in the first round. We could do safety. We could do safety as a first round pick. We could do who's the other odd third? Oh, the other would be like a run stuffing defensive tackle. Let's do safety. Let's do safety as our first round pick. All right. And let's do another 4 round. Let's do it fast. Let's do the Seahawks. Let's go. So at 18, Malachi Starks is gone. So that means we are going to take Nick Amanawari. If you don't know Nick Amanawari, he is one of the big safeties in this class. 6'3", 227. Gives you a little bit of the Cam Chancellor vibes. Whoops, looks like the snow cam has lost its juice for the day. So sorry about that. You just got me now. And so Amanawari is a guy who is an appealing athlete. He can play a little linebacker for you. He's a middle of the field player. There's some people that, and you even see it here, kind of compare him to Kyle Hamilton. So I think, like, as far as guys being mocked to the Seahawks, I like Amanawari as a really interesting fit for the Seahawks. I don't know how I feel about it at number 18. But what you do when you add a guy like that is now you've got Julian Love, you've got Kobe Bryant, and you've got Amanawari, who is a much different style of safety to those 3. Gives you a lot of opportunity to mix and match on defense. Maybe alleviates a little bit of your backup linebacker need, right? We've talked about the fact that you might want to draft a Carson Schlesinger or a Jeffrey Bassa or a Demetrius Knight later in the draft. Maybe you don't have to if you get a safety. Maybe he play like Amanawari at least, that he can play multiple positions. There goes a couple players before pick 50. Donovan Jackson, Mason Taylor, 2 guys I really like. There goes Jihad Campbell as well. So now we're at pick 50. We have gone with safety with our first pick. Walter Nolan is sitting there. That's crazy. I think you'd have to run and take Walter Nolan, but you got to look at offensive line. You just have to. So who are the guards available? See, it's already like they really have the guards pushed up. They happen to have Gray Zabel available. I think that's within the realm of reason. So we're gonna go ahead and draft Gray Zabel here, um, because in this particular sim, if you do not draft an interior offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds, it's just like what Dane Brugler told us yesterday. If you don't draft in the first 2 rounds, you're going to be hurting. So done. We've taken now a safety and a Manowari and a guard, do it all, any position, Gray Zabel. And now you're in the 3rd round. And at this point, you could take Jackson Dart. I don't think this is a crazy place to take Jackson Dart. Let's go ahead and do it. It's not the pick that I would advocate for. I'd actually pick Azariah Thomas personally at this point, but or one of these other like Arroyo or something like that. But let's go a different route. Let's take Jackson Dart, the quarterback, in the 3rd round. I think that's a reasonable place to take Jackson Dart. I think he's about a 4th-round talent, but quarterbacks get bid up, so taking him in the 3rd round makes sense. And now we're here at the 4th round, and there's a guy that jumps out, a few guys that jump out right away. Jamari Caldwell from Oregon, to me, would be you run in the pick if he's available. He's certainly a good name. Jeffrey Bassa, now, if you had not picked a Manowari, maybe Bassa becomes a more interesting name in this situation. You could go with Luke Lachey if you want a run blocking tight end. You could double up and take Miles Frazier, who I really love at guard. Big dude, offers a lot. Clay Webb, maybe. I think it's a little early for Clay Webb based on what I saw of him. There's Demetrius Knight, the linebacker. Definitely some interesting names still available on this list. Let's go ahead. There's Jonah Monheim as well. Let's take Jamari Caldwell. I think he's the best player. And so what you end up with here is 2 offensive players, 2 defensive players. You start with Nick Manowari. You're at safety. Gray Zabel is your guard in the 2nd round. Jackson Dart, maybe your quarterback of the future. You draft him in the 3rd round. You're not betting everything on him, but you're certainly giving him an opportunity. And then Jamari Caldwell, defensive tackle, can play nose, but is a mover at that size. What do you guys think of this one? How do you feel about this grouping when you go safety in the 1st round? It wasn't as bad as I thought. I think getting Gray Zabel in the 2nd round kind of saves it. I think Jamari Caldwell in the 4th round is a steal. I think, that's actually a realistic place where you could get a player like him. And, taking a chance on Dart in the 3rd round, to me, makes sense. I don't personally, I don't love any of these quarterbacks enough where I'm like, yeah, go get a quarterback. I'd rather have Kyle McCord in the 4th round or Tyler Shuck in the 4th round than Jackson Dart in the 3rd. But, I don't think this is crazy. And I think Dart's got a lot of things to like about him. And who knows? He's got some of the mobility. He's a tough guy. I like that aspect of his game. So it looks like folks generally like this draft. Old School gives it an A. So that's a good one. Let's do one more. Let's do one more strange 1st round pick for the Seahawks. All right. And in this case, we're going to do a cornerback. Okay. We're going to do a cornerback. And we're going to make this a 5-rounder because this is the last one we'll do for the day. And cornerback's an odd position for the Seahawks to pick, a strange position for the Seahawks to pick in the 1st round because they have Reek Woolen, they have Devin Witherspoon, they have Josh Jobe. But Josh Jobe I don't know that you can count on him being the answer forever. I'm not a believer in Nehemiah Pritchett yet. He didn't show me what I needed to see last year. They certainly saw something and kept him around, played him. But let's go ahead and Mason Graham's available, by the way, in this sim. We are not going to let that be the case. That would be fun, but that's not the case. So if they went cornerback in the first round, who are some names that it could possibly be? Benjamin Morrison's a guy who, for a lot of people, had him as a top pick. He has been injured, and so that affects his kind of draft stock. But a lot of people like him. There's some people that have some questions about him in like run support, but that is one. Let's actually go and pull up the cornerback list. Maxwell Hairston's a guy that some people might have. Let's go ahead and take. We're gonna go crazy. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Just take a breath. I told you they're gonna be strange. We're gonna take Darian Porter, because here's what's gonna happen. Darian Porter at 6'2", 200 pounds, is gonna run in the 4.2s at the combine, and he is going to rocket up the draft boards. He is going to have an absolutely insane combine. So we're going to say he is going to be the corner that you draft in the first round at 18. That is a strange pick. That is a strange pick for sure. Now you've got Darian Porter, who can absolutely play outside, allows you to move Devin Witherspoon inside whenever you want. He is a strictly outside corner, though. So if you've heard when I've had Coach on the show before talking about defense, he's always talked about the third cornerback position being a real issue. This is Coach Cody Alexander, if you don't know Coach. He's always talked about the Seahawks having a third corner issue, and he talked about how Josh Jobe really helped last year. But if Darian Porter can be a step up from that, then you've got some things you can do there that maybe you just couldn't do before. So that's your first pick. Second pick has got to be offense, and it's got to probably be offensive line. There's not a lot of choices left. There's Marcus Bowe. There's Gray Zabel. So Zabel's there again. It's always fun to pick Zabel. Let's do it. Let's take Gray Zabel. I would take Bowe, but let's just take Zabel. Done. It always feels good. Everything we can do to put that out in the world that Gray Zabel will be a Seahawk. Let's do it. Now we get to the third round pick, and there's Omar Norman Lott available. That's Azariah Thomas. You don't need another corner, but man, you could get one. David Walker at edge, Alfred Collins, defensive tackle. There's Gunnar Helm at corner, Arroyo, Shamar Turner. Some interesting names there. I think in this particular case, I'm pretty tempted to go with a tight end. Although, yeah, you gotta prioritize offense. You just have to. I think Omar Norman Lott's the better player. But let's go ahead and grab Arroyo to make sure we're adding some. I think the tight end position is one of the top needs for this team. And I think you got to take one of the good ones, at least by the third round. Here we are in the fourth round. So there's Jack Besh available. Jeffrey Bass is available. Again, let's Jack Besh is the guy and Caldwell I'm definitely tempted by. You could take Jonah Monheim to double up on offensive line. I don't think that's the worst decision. It's a tough one. Not as much about Elijah Roberts. No, too late. Let's go ahead and we haven't taken Jonah Monheim before. We're going to take a center to give you a couple different options there. I don't love that pick immediately. I would have rather taken Besh there. So buyer's remorse. And then last pick, fifth round. We are going to take Jamari Caldwell here. I think that's the obvious pick. Just scrolling through to see if there's anyone else that jumps out. There's Willie Lampkin. Wee Willie Lampkin. That is my name for him, by the way. Wee Willie Lampkin, 270 pounds. So here's a 5-round mock, our last one of the day. And you go Darian Porter in the first round. You could say Benjamin Morrison if you'd rather, but I'm going to make a prediction that Darian Porter is going to have a big combine and rocket up the boards. Then you get Gray Zabel, Elijah Arroyo at tight end, Jonah Monheim at center, and Jamari Caldwell at defensive tackle. So I think this is an interesting class. I think you double up on the offensive line. I don't know that Gray Zabel is going to be available at 50. That seems very optimistic. Arroyo in the third round might be optimistic. I think Caldwell in the fifth round is optimistic. I don't hate this draft. So this one I could get behind. And here's the thing, folks. Everybody wants to draft a quarterback because, draft one every year, all that kind of stuff. You have to substitute out one of these names. And maybe you're like, Jonah Monheim, easily. Substitute him out for a quarterback. Sure, maybe you do that. Maybe you feel better. But it's hard to pass on position players that you need in order to take a quarterback that you don't necessarily believe is really going to end up being the guy for your team. So those are a number of strange picks the Seahawks could make in the first round. A number of them have been predicted for the Seahawks to make in the first round. Of all of them, I'm curious, which of those do you guys feel like is most realistic? That they take a inside linebacker, that they take a offensive tackle, a pure tackle, not a guard, that they take a cornerback or a safety or a quarterback. Which of those to you feels the most realistic of those five? I think for me, maybe the tackle. I mean, we've seen John Schneider do draft tackles in the first round a lot. So maybe that is where he would go. If you're interested in a guy like Talanoa Hufanga, then Amanawari becomes a possibility. If you're not going to keep Rayshawn Jenkins, he's a very interesting, talented player, tone setter, could be a Swiss Army knife. So I think inside linebacker to me is the least likely. That just seems like positional value wise, situationally, I just don't see it. Cornerback, probably the second least likely. They put a lot of resources into corner. I can't imagine them spending a first round pick on a corner this year. But who knows? Maybe they look at it and say, we're not going to extend Reek Woolen. Maybe we want to put him on notice. And maybe they feel like they need another shutdown corner. And maybe, here, let me talk myself into this. Maybe they use that as a way to trade Reek Woolen. If you could trade Reek Woolen, maybe get a second round pick for him. Do you do it? If you get a guy like Darian Porter to replace him? Maybe. So these are all kind of strange, but we got time. We might as well explore some of them. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you head on over to jkboots.com. Use code HawkBlogger, get 10% off. A pair of the best boots you're ever going to own. I love my JK boots. I can wear them around in the snow, that's for sure. And not only do you get 10% off, you're going to get a chance to win a one-of-a-kind pair of Seahawks-themed boots. They're working on a new design. So this is going to be a new pair of boots, different than the one that Matt McManus got or is going to get. They're making it for Matt right now, I believe. And then we also always doing stuff for charity. We've given away a number of boots to firefighters, either Northwest Forest firefighters or the LA firefighters, to get fire boots. And you can find on the JK Boots Instagram page when they've tagged me, they've talking to some of the people who've had the boots that have been given away as they fight fires. So appreciate everybody who's participated. Use code HawkBlogger and you won't regret it. It's a great deal, great boots. Northwest company, made in Spokane by family-owned business. So really, really recommend it. Give the show a like, click subscribe. Give your fellow HawkBlogger community neighbor a pat on the back. Wish them well. I will be back tomorrow and working on a few possibilities for tomorrow. Friday, we're going to have Ryan Fowler of the Draft Network back on. Loved talking to Ryan before the Senior Bowl. wanted to catch up with him after the Senior Bowl. So keep an eye on that. But until I see you next, I'm Brian Nemhauser. This has been episode 317 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, folks.